Good evening. Welcome to the West Midlands Football Podcast. Here we are live. We are here on a Monday morning and we are here to chat all things West Midlands football. So let me introduce our illustrious panel. My name is Jack Spedding. It is my debut of hosting this evening. Hopefully I don't have any sort of San Marino style electric cutouts, but we shall see. First of all, the man to my right on the screen, we have, he cuts him and he bleeds baggy blue. He is Jonathan Wimrush. How are you, sir?
I'm not too bad. What an introduction, though.
I try my best.
Not too bad, man.
Try my best. Second of all, the man below me, the third and final man, his name is Josh Clark. Josh, how are you, sir? You cut him.
Not too bad.
And he bleeds Birmingham blue. You good?
Unfortunately, yeah. I'm good. I'm looking forward to the weekend, but come Sunday, I could be saying the complete opposite again.
I don't mind the international break sometimes, It's just, a lot can happen in an international break. You start an international break and by the end of it, your manager's at Norwich. It's a very strange time.
Yeah.
Let's start with something like that then, shall we? Let's start with, I guess, the big news in the West Midlands this week. One Steven Gerrard is out of nowhere the new manager of Aston Villa. Jonathan, we'll start with you, mate. What are your thoughts on this? Was it time for Dean to go? Is Gerrard the right man to come in?
Well, we discussed this on last week's podcast about Dean Smith leaving Villa. I believe, given the results, it was the right decision to let him go from Villa Park. But Steven Gerrard, I'm a bit surprised at that appointment. He's done bits for Rangers in recent years. And to be honest, let's face it, his main goal is to manage Liverpool after Jurgen Klopp leaves Anfield. So I'm in the category that thinks that Aston Villa to Steven Gerrard is just a stepping stone for him to eventually manage Liverpool. I don't know how what Villa fans think about that. A few Villa fans that I've spoke to think the same as well, but I don't know what the majority of the Villa fans think about that.
Yes, it's a common theory among people, isn't it, that Gerrard, is only in this to get into the Liverpool job, and maybe even England job. Some people are mentioning as well eventually. So we shall see about that. Josh, do you have thoughts on Gerrard?
I think any job that he gets that isn't Liverpool, everyone's assuming the same thing. In his defence, maybe he sees the Villa job as another tick in that box to prove that he's doing it at a higher level. As good as Rangers are, they're never going to be bigger than a Premiership club, unfortunately, because their expectations are skewed because their league is so poor. And that's not their fault. It's just the way it is. He's not dominated Europe. He's not dominated Europa League or the Champions League. So really, he's got a championship budget with a championship squad in Europe. He's never going to do any more than he already has. He's kind of completed everything he can do. But with the Villa job, if he gets them sixth, it's worth more to the Liverpool hierarchy than, say, winning 2 titles with Rangers. And also with Christian Perslow being at the Villa, it's clearly a link that he wants to continue and the relationship that he's got there. So personally, I'm gutted. I didn't want him to go there. I like Gerrard. I think he's a good manager. I never want to see the Villa do anything positive, really. But yeah, it's. I think it's a good move for him to showcase what he can do on a bigger stage. And if he does well, he's guaranteed that Liverpool job. I think everyone assumes it's going to happen. But with the Villa on his CV, if they get sixth or get to a final or anything like that, it's going to strengthen his hand to take over after Klopp.
I feel like for him, I think he's probably achieved everything he went up to Scotland to do. He stopped Celtic getting 10 in a row. He played some decent football, but from what I can't say I watched Rangers every single week, but from what I've seen of Rangers, they do play some nice stuff. And I do feel that I don't think Klopp's going anywhere anytime soon at Liverpool.
No.
And I do think, it's not, it's no secret that he eventually wants to manage Liverpool, but I feel like a jump from Rangers to Liverpool, I know Rangers are a big, big football club, but that jump is a very high jump, which is probably why, he's, it'd be a good thing for Villa as well. If he is using Villa to go up a league, he's only going to get the Liverpool job if he does a good job at Villa. So it
Yeah.
works both ways, really, doesn't it? Let's be honest. Looking at some of the other options that were available, the likes of Roberto Martinez was mentioned, maybe someone like Ralph Hasenhüttl and the Denmark manager. Jonathan, do you think they could have done much better, or do you think Gerrard was probably number one choice for a reason?
Well, I reckon he was number one choice for a reason. I mean, he might not be a player anymore, but his experience as a Premier League player will especially, rub off, or at least Villa hope it rubs off on the youth players. And basically, who's a youth player in Villa?
Aaron Ramsey.
There we go, Aaron Ramsey. So he's hoping that, the experience that Gerrard had at Liverpool as a player rubs off on Aaron Ramsey, and basically it's the youth factor, isn't it? The future of Aston Villa Football Club that is being targeted at the moment, I believe, with Gerrard's appointment.
They have got some good young players coming through Villa. They do pride themselves on that. Josh, do you think they could have got anybody better? It sounds like you're quite upset that Gerrard is going now. It suggests you think it might be quite a good appointment in the long run.
Yeah, I think the Perzo link is there. I think it'd be naive to assume they would have sacked Dean Smith without him already waiting in the wings. The fact they've paid $4.5 million for him kind of points to that they knew it was going to happen, and he was willing to take it on as well. I don't think anybody else was really there. Martinez hasn't really done a lot in Belgium. I would have preferred to get Martinez. I don't think he's a very good manager. I think he's kind of just got away with it. He's like the Marco Silva was at one point, where he's the flavour of the month, and he's kind of just kept it going. With Gerrard, I think he's got fundamental skills that would help him as a manager. I feel like he knows how to deal with the media. Unlike Lampard, potentially, he's learned from his mistakes and then built on them. Yes, his job was bigger in the sense of Lampard's first job was Derby, and he didn't succeed. I do think that he will do well, but he won't have much time. He's got to hit the ground running quite quickly. If he doesn't get a result in the first 4 games, I think the murmurs are going to be coming out. But unfortunately, I think he will. I think he'll get them playing a better brand of football. I think Dean Smith kind of went to old ways of doing things, and it didn't get results. And I think the hierarchy saw the money they spent, and they wanted a bit more returns for what they've spent on. And I think the only fact that kept him there longer was the fact he was a Villa fan. I think if he wasn't a Villa fan, he might have gone maybe even last season. So I think he's done well to go as long as he did. Some Villa fans might think I'm talking complete rubbish. I don't watch them. Or I'm just seeing from what the bigger picture say, that the quality of football was poor. And if you lose 5 games in a row, if you're anyone in the Prem, you're going to be looking over your shoulder, Yeah. Even Ollie couldn't stand that, and Ollie's bulletproof at the moment. And he's horrendous. No,
so he's immortal, Ollie Gunnar Solskjaer.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
We thought Daniel Farke at Norwich was bulletproof. And then
that is true.
Finally got rid of Daniel Farke. So, yeah.
Well, we'll get to Norwich shortly. Because I am an Aston Villa fan, full disclosure. And the thing with Dean, it wasn't just these last 5 results. This slide had been coming. I know he's been unlucky with injuries and stuff, but I do feel like I was sceptical to get rid of him, but now that Gerrard is in, I'm excited by the prospect. Villa Park is now a sellout for the home game against Brighton on Saturday, so it'll be, if nothing else, very interesting to see how he gets on. So we shall see, won't we? We shall see. I'm all for it. I think we'll be okay. But the problem is with Aston Villa, Josh, what do you think Aston Villa's expectations are, and what should they be? What is Gerrard?
There's 3 expectations that you've got. You've got the board's level expectation, your fan base, and then reality. The problem is all 3 of them are different. So I think if you finish 4th bottom, it's a success because you need to be in the Prem, fundamentally. Your fan base, you split it in half. Half will say champions. The other half will say Europa League. And both of them are probably a little bit step too far. Then it's where you're going to fall in between them 2 massive chasms. It's the players on paper should be doing better than they are. And that's probably another reason why Smith has had the axe, because he spent a lot of money. Yes, he hasn't. A Villa fan, friend of mine, said that you're not even actually negative with the Jack money, but it doesn't make a difference when you've actually still spent that money. You still spent a lot of money, and your returns are quite low. So I think anything from 4th bottom to 10th is a very good season. Anything above that is amazing. A little cup run is brilliant. But I think for Gerrard, I think he just wants to see a progression from now to the end of the season. If he can see the team are playing better than they are 2 games ago compared to now, then he's done a good job. And then he can put his own stamp on it in the summer. I don't think there'll be much change in January. I think there is money to be spent, but January is always hard to navigate, and you might see a cheeky bid from to Rangers for like Ryan Kent or someone like that. I don't think there's much else in Rangers you could potentially take to play in the Prem. Maybe Tavernier, but he's the wrong side of 20, really. I think he's closer to 30 than he is 20. So, yeah, I think there needs to be a bit of realisation that Gerrard might not be as good as he is in Scotland until next season. But I think his fundamentals are there, and his backroom stuff is brilliant. I watched a podcast today about one of his coaches that he's top level, and people do seminars with him.
I believe his name is.
That's the one, yeah. I've never heard of him before. I just thought McAllister was his main man, but I watched a podcast. He was saying like he waxed lyrical about him, that he's really into his stuff and he knows what he's talking about. So when you're bringing that sort of expertise into the club, which clearly need it, I think you've got a good chance. But it might be longer term than short term.
Yes, I've heard that. Yes, I had never heard of this Philip Beale character before the start of this week, and now I will worship at the altar of whoever he is or whatever he does. So, for all I care, he's a good lad for me. Glenn Kamara was the name at Rangers that I saw linked because Villa desperately need a holding midfielder. I think that would make sense. But the man, of course, who's left Aston Villa is now all of a sudden at Norwich City. Jonathan Dean Smith.
Yeah.
Took me by surprise, that one.
That was a bit of a turn up, yeah. I wasn't expecting that one. I thought Norwich would have probably, pushed the boat a bit, go after Nuno after he left Tottenham. Might have been a bit of a step too far for Norwich, though. Dean Smith, he's been in, no disrespect, he's been in relegation battles before. He's got the experience to get Norwich out, but it's going to be a tough ask considering Norwich have only won one of their games so far. So it is going to be a bit of a tough ask to get Norwich out of relegation. I think for both Norwich and for Villa, the priority this season is to avoid relegation. Might be for Watford, Burnley, and Newcastle as well to avoid relegation. So. Yeah, he's got the experience in a relegation fight.
I would throw Leeds into that mix as well, actually, just on the off note. But I was surprised. I think one thing that might be attractive to him is that he's clearly seen that Daniel Farke got relegated and then still was allowed to build something at Norwich. So that's what I was thinking. Josh, as a team who will probably be in the Championship next season.
Hopefully.
I'm sure he won't be going down. I don't think going on. Does the prospect of a Dean Smith-led Norwich City make you tremble in your boots?
No, I think it's too soon. I think it's far too soon. I think it could blow up in his face big time. You've left your boyhood club and you're meant to be downbeat and upset, and then you jump into a job that's harder than the one you've just left. I think it could be a masterstroke, it could be a complete capitulation, but he's clearly got reassurances if they go down that he can rebuild. And in the Championship, he probably will get a tune out of them. He'll have money compared to other clubs in the Championship. So it might work, but I've just got a feeling it's a bit too soon. Nuno would have felt too soon, but with Smith making out how much of a Villa fan he is, surely you need a bit of time away and a bit to recoup and figure out what you've done wrong, and then you've got to jump into another job which is probably 10 times harder than the Villa job. You couldn't get a tune out of Buendia and Bailey. What have you got at Norwich? Todd Cantwell, who is not getting any games, so he's clearly not playing well. Pukki's not
Timo
Watkins.
Pukki,
yeah, he's not Watkins, though. He couldn't get Watkins to score. He's not Danny Ings, so I think it's a mad decision for him. And it also points to maybe I need to be relevant, so I've got to take anything I can. And why isn't Lampard taking it? What's Lampard seen? Or was that just media talk to try and push Dean Smith to jump? But it seems a bit too rushed to me. But I could be completely wrong, and it could be a masterstroke. He could keep him up. But yeah, it's a mad one. But it'd be interesting to see when Norwich play the Villa and what reception he gets and how he reacts to being there as well.
I think he would get a very good reception. I bet he's fuming that Villa signed their best player this summer. I bet he's regretting that one right now. A bit like when
definitely.
But it's a bit like when your mate gets heartbroken by a girlfriend, isn't it? And then it's like, and you rush into a relationship too soon after a rebound. It's like, no, don't think about it a bit. Take a couple of months off. Don't do it, Dean. Yeah. So I think he would get a good reception. That game is in December, I think, Norwich versus Villa. So that will be.
Is it at the Villa as well?
It is at Villa Park. I should know that, really. I don't know that.
Yeah,
but yes,
that could be a tricky one.
It will be a tricky. It'll be a much trickier prospect than a Farker Norwich, I would think. So I think he will actually organise them pretty well.
Yeah.
Just on Frank Lampard quickly, his name was linked with the Villa job, and that made me shiver. I must say, I couldn't have handled Frank Lampard in charge. Right, I think we've done Villa. Let's and we've slated Frank Lampard for no apparent reason. Let's move on to West Bromwich Albion. Jonathan, specialist subject. I've written some facts down. 3 wins and 6 points off second. You are playing away at Huddersfield Town this weekend, and you are 1 place above Coventry currently, which is quite strange. At Coventry are currently 4th in the Championship. It's like going back to the early noughties, isn't it? But anyway, international breaks are sometimes a good time to take stock of your season so far. What was, if you had to grade Ismail's baggies out of, what sort of grade would you be giving them so far?
Oh, honestly, it might be a B-, C+. We've had our moments during the season, like beating Luton. Okay, we conceded 2 late goals, and it got very nervy, but we beat Luton. And the Birmingham game. Sorry, Josh, but the Birmingham game where we ground out a 1-0 win wasn't our best performance, and all credit to the Blues. They defended for their lives. So I would say like C+, B- at the moment. It's definitely not A grade with some of the tactics, but yeah.
Josh, were you blown away by West Brom during that 1-0 win? Did you think there were certs for promotion after that?
I think they're workmanlike, and I think Ishmael needs a window. He needs money. The way he played for Barnes last season doesn't replicate the way he plays for Baggies. He needed to come with a different tactic, but I think he's still quite new in his management style, so he only got one way of playing it. Unfortunately, the players that Baggies have don't fit that style. I think they've got one of the oldest squads in the league, so it's always going to be hard for them to run as much as the Barnsley team did. If you look at Barnsley now, they're bottom, so clearly he was doing something right to get them from playoffs to be towards the bottom of the league. I think the biggest problem is he's gone in there with a mindset that my tactics will work everywhere, when in actual fact they don't. You've got to play to your strengths. And signing Moat is an absolute cracking deal on a free transfer. He's probably the best midfielder in the league.
Yeah.
And my only issue is you're still winning games. Yes, it might not be pretty, but try being a Blues fan. Try playing as badly as you think you do and losing and making silly mistakes and watching defenders not defend. You can be... Yeah. Baggies are becoming a club where you go up and down and you do the same thing. You play good football in the Championship, you go in the Prem, you play poor football, but you stay where you are for a season and you go back down again. Why don't you try playing poor football that gets you results continuously and build something and get a bit of momentum? I understand that Ishmael come with a bit of a swagger and a bit of style. You need to back him then. You've only got loans, you've got frees, you've not used any money from the Prem. I know your owners aren't as giving as they probably should be. A bit like my owners, At least you know who your owner is. You've got pictures of him. You can see
your owner these days.
How long have you got? How long have you actually got? Because it's a spider's web. It's a spider's web. There is not one person. It's a multitude of people that all wear different hats and different faces.
Okay, let's get back to that. Jonathan, let's skip this West Brom thing. Jonathan, I watched Barnsley last season, and they fascinated me by how direct they were.
Yeah,
absolutely. It was bizarre that they managed to get into the top 6 because they were just so predictable, but really good at what they did.
Yeah.
It was fascinating. Something tells me that West Brom fans aren't fascinated. Is it boring
Oh, it is kind of boring. I mean, it's like pass, and then like pass back, and it's like why are you doing like 5 passes forward just to pass it all the way back to Sam Johnston in goal? And it's like then Sam Johnston tries to distribute it. I don't know what the difference is. I don't know what Gareth Southgate gets out of him to make him like ping passes to Grealish for Grealish to score. And then I'm looking at Sam Johnston. Connection. Yeah, and I'm looking at Sam Johnston, the West Brom player, and he's booting it like into touch. And it's like, why can't you do for England? Why can't you do for West Brom what you did for England? And I mean, like this weekend, especially Callum Robinson doing bits for Ireland at the moment, but yeah, we can't even get the ball to Callum Robinson. Or when he is getting the ball, he's passing to Karlan Grant, and at the moment, Karlan Grant's bailed us out a lot with his goals. But why aren't you shooting yourself, Callum, like you are for Ireland? It's just a bit, it's as I said, it's the tactics that Valorant and West Brom employ at the moment. It's just so different from how they play their international football.
Bizarre that Sam Johnston still plays in the Championship, by the way.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe international football just isn't as good as Championship football, Jonathan. Maybe that's what it is. England are currently 4-0 up against San Marino, if you're interested. Tyrone Mings and Connor Cody, both representing the West Midlands there. Josh, any more thoughts on the West Brom revolution? Did you have, do you think there would... I think their problem is Fulham and Bournemouth are both very good, aren't they, really?
Yeah.
Probably too good for the Championship. Yeah. But West Brom, I imagine they'll get into the playoffs, and, is there any point for just going to go down again?
I think the biggest problem is they've still got players in key areas that have got hangover from relegation. They haven't freshened that squad up. They've not spent any money. So Callum Grant is always going to score goals in this league. He's an awkward player, like Dwight Gale, a bit like Farker as a manager, where he's too good for the Championship, but he's not good enough for the Prem. So he's an awkward bit in between.
Cameron Jerome syndrome, I believe it is.
Yeah, and it's infuriating for obviously the fans. I can get it, but Baggies need to remember that they're not the team they used to be, which they used to entertain the Championship, go up for a bit, and then come back down again. You're not that team anymore because you haven't got the players to do that, and you haven't got the managers to do that. I do think in time he will be able to get what you want, but you've got to ask yourself a question: why is he passing the ball back or asking players to keep the ball? Because it's trying to do a specific thing. If it doesn't work, then that's on him, and trust me, I've watched managers that do that stuff all the time. Karanka was the worst for it. He would continually do the same thing over and over again and expect the same result, and he would a loss. It would never be a win. We'd set games up to not lose. You ultimately lose. So as much as I can understand why Baggies fans are annoyed, you're in the top half. You're not in the bottom. Yeah. So there's only so much you can moan about because you've not spent a penny. You've only done free transfers and loans and just stood in the shout to get up. If you get up now and not spend anything, who's say your owners and go, right, there's 100 million, crack on. And then with
it's happened before.
That's the problem.
We got promoted, and it was basically a Championship team with 1 or 2 loans. Yeah. And then all of a sudden we're back down again.
Yeah.
So we knew last season that there was going to be no investment whatsoever, and obviously from a Baggies mindset, we was like, what is the point? You're sending a Championship team to try and survive in the Premier League. What are you doing?
Just quickly, Jonathan, who is your own? Are you struggling for money then, West Brom?
No, it's basically it's Gauchen Lai, and he's got like a Chinese company, and he's basically said that West Bromwich Albion needs to be self-sufficient. I mean, what the hell does that mean? We need to be self-sufficient. He wants us to survive in the Premier League, but he's not giving us any money to survive in the Premier League. And then all of a sudden, he's surprised when we get relegated.
That dog agrees. That dog agrees with all your points. Excellent work. All right, cool. That's my problem. Ticked off. Josh, hi. Let's talk about Birmingham City, please. You are...
Do we have to?
15th. Yes, we do. Yes. You are 15th in the league. You are away at Hull. They're not very good. So I would like your thoughts on Birmingham's season so far, please, and where you think is a realistic goal.
It all depends on how lucky we get with injuries. We've had a lot of injuries at the moment. We've lost probably our most exciting player in Chong, which is depressing. Hopefully we can see him back in February and potentially another loan next season to make up for this one. I think a key point for us is how we integrate Sanchez back in the squad. He's not really got a lot of game time under Bowyer. A little bit his fault, a little bit of system change. We're going to be losing Riley McGree back to his parent club that doesn't exist yet. They exist in March next year because it's convoluted as always with Blues. It was bought from a Australian club by an MLS club. They don't start until next season. So we had an 18-month loan to Blues, and we can't change
that. Let me write that down. Let me try and have to figure that one out, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the MLS, they always have clubs that are in the league, but they have a certain time when they can actually enter. So Riley McGree is one of their marquee players, but they couldn't play for 18 months, so they had to loan him out. Blues jumped in and took him. Yeah.
Brilliant. Right.
So we had him that season, and we've had him again till January this season. And it's typical of Blues, and this is what Blues fans will always say. He's coming to the end of his loan, and he's starting to play really well. He's scoring goals, and he's becoming integral. And why would he not leave? It's just typical Blues. It's what happens to us time and time again. So losing a player like him is going to be hard in January. We don't really have money to spend potentially, and if we do, it will be minimal. So it's trying to balance all that. It's trying to get the best out of Troy, which is slowly starting to happen with a system that works. My opinion is the formation is wrong still. It should be 4 at the back, but Bowyer's getting a little bit of a rhythm going, so fair enough. The biggest problem we've got is we've had the same defence for almost 5 years, and the same defence conceded 72 goals last season, countless others, and it's continuously the same people with the same mistakes looking at other people to blame. And it's when you have a player like Harley Dean, he should not be your best defender. He needs to be your second best, so we can be talked through the game. We don't have anyone that's second best. You know, he is the best defender on paper, and that's the problem. It's a bit like when we had Curtis Davies years ago. He was always better when he had someone like Roger Johnson next to him. Or
we've all been there, Curtis Davies.
Yeah. So on his day, he's one of the best defenders you'll see, but his head will go for 10 minutes, and you need someone to go, Curtis, watch me, and we'll do this together. That kind of thing, yeah. So, but with Harley Dean, sometimes he gets
his red card against Blackpool still gives me nightmares.
It's just and it's not Harley Dean's fault on his own. There's a lot of people that have come down and their performances have just dropped. But and I also don't really blame Bowyer. It's simple fact is when you bargain basement and you look for freebies, there's only so much you can do, and we've done that for unfortunately too long. And the money we have spent has been poor. We spent money in the wrong places, in the wrong areas, with the wrong people, and with agents. So it's always going to be this problem. So my hope is anywhere from 15th to 10th is a really good season. And after that, we'll see what happens and we can see where we go. My hope for the end of the season is Jude Bellingham goes 120 million and we get a nice little payoff and we can hopefully spend it and it doesn't go into our owner's purse collection.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that Jude Bellingham thing. Yeah, that was. So how long's Bo? Remind me again. How long's Bowyer been there for now?
So I think he come in the start of this year. I think it was. So it was back end of last season to replace Karenka, who was by far one of the worst managers I've ever seen. The arrogance of the man was almost as bad as Cottrell. Almost. No one's as arrogant as that man. But his positioning, his defensive work, his tactics, his attacking understanding was just null and void. It was just we set up to not lose games, and ultimately we lost games because he didn't have any interest in attacking. So with Bowyer, you can see there's a definite change, and his hands are kind of tied at the moment, and it's not necessarily his fault. And I can see what he's trying to do, and it is interesting. And the fact he's got someone like Troy to buy into the project is also good. We're starting to see returns from him. Hogan's getting a little bit of form, and Hogan is one of the most infuriating players going. But when it works, you can't help but like him. You know, my argument still is we shouldn't have taken him from the Villa after the loan. It should have been the loan was enough, and you move on.
Yeah.
But clearly the Blues couldn't get another deal done, so it was we'll go back to him and since then it hasn't really worked compared to the loan move. With players like Duke, he probably is in the legendary status, but his legs have completely gone. He come on the last game, 5 minutes, looked like he was tired. It's like, oh, we're on the pitch. It's there needs a lot of dead wood moving out, and this is the problem with Blues. We don't get rid of the players before it's too late. We always leave them a little bit longer and a little bit longer, and we push a bit more, and it's pushing us into a position where we're stuck with them a little bit. And some of the deals that Bowyer has done, you can see it's for necessity, not because you need them, because you've got nothing else. Anike isn't a championship player. He's probably a League One at best, and he's struggling to get any sort of rhythm going. So, yeah, it's not brilliant, but it's not too bad. And we'll probably get a couple of wins here and there, and we'll have a little bit of excitement, but I don't think it'll be much more than mid-table mediocrity. And to be honest, with all the relegation battles we've had, I'm happy with that. I'm happy to not have to worry about the trapdoor opening and swallowing us up.
I remember Lee Bowyer, when he was at Charlton, did a really good job with his hands, 2 hands and 2 feet tied behind his back, never mind anything else, So he's had good practice of that. I must say, the idea of a Troy Deeney and Scott Hogan front 2 is every Villa fan's worst nightmare, I think, to be honest.
Yeah.
2 very unpopular men for very different reasons at Villa.
Yeah.
Jonathan, do you have any hot takes on Birmingham City Football Club?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. This season especially, I can't seem to figure Birmingham out at the moment. I mean, you played well against us, and even I've got to admit, we were lucky to come away with a 1-0 win. And then, like, the 2 games this month, you batter Bristol City 3-0, just like we did. But then you lose to Reading to, like, 2 late goals. And it's like, well, yeah, you can batter teams like Bristol City, but you lose to teams like Reading. And, yeah, you lost to Middlesbrough as well, beat Swansea. So, at the moment, I can't seem to figure out what kind of form Birmingham City's on, because at the moment it's like win, lose, win, lose, win, lose.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And my argument from this moment on is we don't play a flat 4. So when we don't play a flat 4, we don't think we've done it all season. We get caught in transition. So our 3 centre halves aren't good enough to play in a 3. They're just about playing a 2. So you've always got one of them going missing, and we've had to play Graham as a winger at fullback or wing back. And he's done really well, but that's not his position. Sanderson's been injured, and he's probably our best defender, which says a lot about the club. That a player on loan from Wolves, relatively inexperienced, to be fair, considering he's only had 1 loan at Sunderland. He's by far our best defender. I can see why Wolves did give him the 4-year contract before coming to us. We can't get Woods in the team, which is the one that wants to play short, consistent passes. We've got people like Gardner and Sunic who want to lump ball when they get the chance to get the ball. If they don't, they might 9 times out of 10 they get bypassed by Roberts and Dean, who just want to lump it and assume Dean can control the ball with his head when he can't. He might be as tall as Duke, but he wants it to feet. You can clearly see that, and they don't do that. And then we've got Hogan,
what made him so strong
who's
at
out ball.
Yeah. And I'm saying that's what made Deeney so strong at Watford.
Yeah, it's mental. And we've done that in bits and bobs, and that's when the assists have come. It's only in short periods for the game. It's not consistent. It's here and there, and sometimes we act like the ball's a hot potato. But that's been a Blues problem for so many years. We don't ever try and play it cute. It's always get rid of it. It's somebody else's problem. And when you've got Hogan as your out ball, as your pacey forward, you've got problems because he's not fast. He's average paced. But for us, he's an out ball, and that's not good enough. It's just not. Yeah. It's not what we need. We needed someone with, say, Leko's speed, but someone with a footballing understanding, which Leko hasn't got at this level. He's just not cut out for it. That's why he's gone back to Tottenham alone, because he's not good
when
enough.
He was playing for us.
Yeah,
it was the same when Leko was playing for us.
Yeah. So it's infuriating.
Harry Kane has scored 4 goals this evening. I can see why he was so desperate to play. And it's just half time. It's San Marino 0, England 6. So I think England have probably qualified for the World Cup. Jonathan, you're from the Black Country. Are you from the Black Country, or do you just support teams?
Yeah, born and bred in West Brom. Yeah,
lovely stuff. Do you have any friends who support Wolverhampton Wanderers, and do you have any takes on them within about 5 minutes?
I actually do have a few.
Please,
few
excellent.
Yeah, I do work with a few Wolves fans. basically, yeah. Well, basically, again, like with Birmingham, I can't figure Wolves out at the moment because, again, it's win, lose. And since they got rid of Nuno, I mean, Nuno was doing bits at Wolves last season. Well, maybe not last season, but for a couple of seasons, and they were actually challenging for Europe, amazingly. And yeah, since they sacked Nuno, they just haven't seemed to hit the same kind of heights as they did when he was in charge. Okay, the Raul Jimenez concussion, where he was out for the majority of last season, didn't help because he was, in my opinion, their best player. Connor Cody, Raul Patricio as well. They did well for Wolves, but yeah, it's like they beat Everton and they lose to Crystal Palace. So again, it's like, what are Wolves doing at the moment? Because I don't see the same Wolves that Nuno had like 2, 3, 4 seasons ago.
Josh, do you want 90 seconds on Wolves?
They've not added to what they've got. They've not improved what they've got. They've not changed the tactics. It's kind of a same of the same. And I think Large has proved himself, but he needs his stamp now. So if I was Wolves, I'd be selling to Chore as much as I can, and start again. Maybe a bit more Spanish, maybe a bit more Italian, just not Portuguese, and move away from the Nuno vibe.
Portuguese.
I think they've had enough Portuguese. Yeah, absolutely.
No more Club Wolves to Portugal.
I think that squad needs. I think that squad needs a bit of a refresh as well.
Definitely.
That's my hot take on Wolves. I think, lads, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you very, very much indeed.
Cheers.
Are we predicting wins for our teams this weekend?
Yeah, you've got to predict a win, haven't you? You've got to go for it.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, home to Brighton. Home to Brighton, 2-1 for Birmingham away at Hull, and West Brom are going to do what they're going to do away at Huddersfield.
2-0.
2-0. Okay, and I will say Stevie G's Villa will beat Brighton 3-1. Right. That's about. All right. Thank you very much, lads. Please follow us on Twitter, and please tune in next week for the West Midlands Football Podcast. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
And thank you, Josh.
Thank you, mate. See you later.
We will see you all soon. Bye-bye. Take care.